So good afternoon, everybody. Bear with me here, having a little bit of technical difficulties, but I think they're all resolved now. If you can hear me, if someone could just drop a message in the chat, let me know that you can hear me clearly and there's no issues there, please. Great. So I see we got a good amount of people today. Let's see here. Where'd it go? Yeah, Anna Norris, John Fancier, Andrea Hamblin. Nice. We'll give maybe one more minute for everybody to join in before we get started here. We got looks like a lot of different roles from architects at Omnicell to senior cloud. I imagine that's engineer, project managers. That's great. Software engineers as well. SREs in the house. Oh, got a Kubernetes evangelist. That's awesome. We do a lot of work down here with the local meetup, Kubernetes meetup down in South Florida. All right, so I'll go ahead and get started. Today, I'm coming from you live from Doral, Florida, the home office. To be quite honest, it's been maybe several months since I've actually seen this office, so it's a bit weird for me to be here today. I'm sure everyone has some interesting stories like that too. But I'm happy to join you guys today to talk about how observability-driven development accelerates DevOps transformations. Now, first, a little bit about me. Every time I do one of these talks, my wife always asks me the same thing. Why would anyone want to listen to you, Dave? And the main reason that people tend to listen to me and tend to listen to my team and the company I work with is that we've all walked the walk. I've worked with Fortune 100 companies to small businesses and startups to help them not only migrate into the cloud and transform their organization to a more digital organization, but also a more tactical parts of a cloud transformation or digital transformation, moving them to a DevSecOps organization. I'm currently the DevSecOps platform engineering and managed services lead for Kinect Consulting. And some of the clients that we have range from those Fortune 100 clients to small startups. And what we do is we like to focus on practical ways to help add value to those customers, help those customers, those clients achieve what they're looking for. Kinect Consulting, like I mentioned, is a team of cross-functional experts. What we do is stuff that we've done in our careers before. We don't come in and give 100-page reports on what you need to do. We come in and provide actionable intelligence and actionable tasks to allow you to accomplish your goals. And some of our core competencies are around DevOps, which we're going to be talking about today. CXO services, these are the virtual CTO, virtual CIO services, cloud professional services, security compliance, and digital performance, which is related to New Relic. It's how we do monitoring, digital performance monitoring. So enough about me and the Kinect Consulting. Let's talk about what we're going to be going over today. So We're initially going to talk about DevOps and what the value of DevOps brings, and transition into the key components of a DevOps operating model, and how New Relic drives that observability culture. Observability is a key part of DevOps, as we'll talk about, and New Relic is by far the standard when it comes to observability in the industry. It's the easiest to implement, provides the most features, and now with the new Relic One platform, it's gone beyond what they've been known for. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the gotchas when you're transitioning into observability-driven development model or a DevOps operating model, and how to avoid them and what you can do to address them before they become issues. And then we'll have some time for questions and answers, where I hope I can help you understand a bit more and answer some of your questions that you may have coming out of this talk. So one thing I want to start with is setting the tone for this talk is you can't improve what you can't measure. This goes for just about everything in your life. You're tuning a car. You need to know how fast you're going. If you don't know how fast you're going, how do you know if your tuning is working? Same thing with accounting. If you're not counting how much money you're making, how do you know if you're making more money and if you're improving in that area or not? Same thing with DevOps and development. If you're not measuring certain metrics, then how do you know that you're not improving, or that you are improving? So with that tone set, let's jump into what DevOps is and how it brings value into your organization. So on the right, you'll see a infographic from Deloitte that summarizes what DevOps is. Talks about the people, process, and technology, and also the governance that goes with DevOps. Some people say, oh, that's part of DevSecOps. We'll touch on that a little bit later, but so for me, it's one and the same. And the middle circle that you see here talks about design, development, testing, and deployment. As you can see on the outside of the circle, it talks about all the things that goes into that. If you take this as a whole, you can define what DevOps is. And it's the combination of these philosophies, development philosophies, security philosophies, coupled with the practices or processes and the tools, as you can see in the outside of this infographic, to increase the organization's ability to deliver. But I'm going to sum it up just a little bit further and make it very direct. This DevOps and this infographic, the whole reason you want to go down this route is simply to deliver business value. Doesn't matter what that business what that business value is. Doesn't matter how secure or how fast you can deploy changes out. If you're not delivering business value with that, then what's the point? And DevOps isn't just a set mind state. It's not a set goal. It's constantly evolving and constantly changing based off of the latest technologies, the latest approaches to things out there. And it should. If someone says that, oh, they have DevOps written down and you just follow this plan and you'll be, and you can implement a DevOps team culture, then they're lying to you. Because by the time you implement it, it's going to change and you'll still be working on it. So let's talk a little bit about what DevOps is not. I see these common mistakes coming in, and it's understandable, but it could lead to a lot of pain. So first off, DevOps is not automation. Automation is a part of DevOps, but if you're thinking you're going to implement a DevOps practice just by automating your deployments, then you're sorely mistaken. And I give this example all the time. what is the point of being able to deploy an application out into a production environment in under 15 minutes or 20 minutes in an automatic way if you still have to spend weeks developing that those changes to that application, still have to wait for that to be manually tested, and then when it breaks, you can't roll back because the way the application has been designed doesn't allow for rollbacks. So DevOps is not automation by itself. Just like it's not automation, DevOps is not agile by itself as well. I've had some clients come to me and say, oh, we want to implement DevOps, we want Kanban teams and Scrum teams, and we want to be able to see all our work on a board. That's great, and that's a really great way to organize around the work needed for development. But if you just implement that and don't implement some of the other things that you'll need, you're not moving you're not maturing your DevOps capabilities. I've actually seen a really mature DevOps organization that didn't do anything agile. They met, it was a 3-person team. They met in the morning and they just decided what they were going to work on, and they went away and worked on it, and that was it. They deployed when they were ready, and they tested when they were ready, and they went out into production when they were ready. But they didn't have set tasks written down or anything like that. And lastly, DevOps is not a team. If you are trying to mature your DevOps capabilities by implementing a DevOps team that basically is the gate and controlling everything, then you're doing it wrong, and you're not going to mature very far outside that team. Now, this is very different from, let's say, a platform engineering team that might be building a platform that the rest of the development can build upon, or the rest of the organization can build upon. But even then, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, that team isn't, no one's beholden to use that platform on that team. Other teams can go in different directions, and just as well, they can take what that team is working on and modify it for their own needs. So what is the value of DevOps? Well, it's optimizing software delivery performance to deliver value to those stakeholders and customers. The key part there, again, is value. And I can't stress this enough. Without delivering value to stakeholders and customers, there's no point in going down this direction. So let's talk a little bit about the key components of a DevOps operating model and how observability can drive its success. On the right, you'll see that infographic put together by Deloitte that we went over before. But the areas of this graphic, the areas that we want to measure and improve on are over to the left. And most of these are based off of the DevOps, State of DevOps report, Google sponsored back in 2019. I've added one additional section here under security, which we'll talk about in a minute. And it's broken down in 3 different areas. So on the software development piece, this is related to the design and develop circle on that infographic, and a little bit of the test circle as well. And it goes into, if you have a mature DevOps capability, your lead time for changes is rather low. And what I mean by this is, if the business comes to you and say, hey, we want to be able to theme all our websites pink for Breast Cancer Awareness Day or month, how fast can you get that change? In a very mature DevOps organization, they can get that change done before the meeting's over. It's just a couple of lines that need to be changed to add a pink banner or change the color code, the CSS to what they need. It gets tested to make sure it doesn't break anything, and it goes out. And it goes out in stages that's completely automated, and and tested and halted if there's any issues. All done through automation. And what's the deployment frequency? Lead time for changes, I might be able to get that done really quick, but if I can't deploy it out there, and I can't deploy out quick, I got to wait for a deployment train to come out, and that deployment train only goes once a day. That might be fine for some organizations, but for other organizations, that might not be. I've seen some organizations where they have a deployment once per month. So imagine I'm trying to get ready for some event that's coming out, and I want to update a feature. I want to respond to this recent changes due to COVID-19. I may need to wait till the end of the month in that organization in order to deploy that, or have an ad hoc deployment. So the higher your deployment frequency, I should say, the more mature of a DevOps organization you are. And then we transition into that software deployment area. And this goes into the rest of the DevOps, the rest of the test circle there, and into the deployment, and a little bit into the operational side of things. And it covers what's my change failure rate. Now, if I'm deploying 5 times a day, my change failure rate should be low. And if it's pretty high, I should probably lower my deployment frequency until I can fix that. We want to be able to deploy fast, but if we're having tons of failures, we're not adding value to our customers, and that needs to be changed. So we need to measure that. We want to have that as low as possible. And if there is an issue, how long does it take to actually restore from that issue? If I deploy something out and it breaks the website because now all of a sudden my Apache servers or Nginx servers are overwhelmed, well, how long will it take me to revert from that? That should be also measured and should be relatively low as well. And by being able to measure that, you can have certain discussions around that. Maybe the business doesn't think it's worthwhile spending the time to reduce that from 10 minutes to 1 minute this sprint or the next quarter, because they have several features that's going to double or triple their revenue for the quarter. That might be a valid reason why not to do that. And then we go into software operations area. Availability. This is the measure on how available your application is. If you don't do any deployments for the week just because you haven't, but your application was down 5 times, your availability is going to suck. It's going to be rather low. You want that to be as high as possible. And maybe you need to spend some time re-architecting certain applications, splitting things out, or making some other changes so that you can scale your application and improve your availability. And lastly here, security. This is a big one. I call it out because for some customers, some clients, and some engineers, security is not in their mindset all the time. But it is something that needs to be measured, and it can be measured with all of these areas above, but I'm calling it out here so that's top of mind. How often are you auditing your code or your environment for security? We've worked with clients to implement automated governance and compliance in their environment, so that when they fall out of compliance, there's an alert created that allows them to see this. Well, if you're not measuring this and you're not observing this, you're not monitoring this, then you don't know if you're in compliance or not. It's a mandatory for highly regulated environments for the clients we've worked with, for HIPAA environments and PCI environments. But for non-regulated environments, you still should be doing this just as good security practices. So how does observability drive success in those areas? Well, by being able to measure these things, I can set common goals and share those metrics. And as a team, we can now execute against our goals and recognize the results against that. I remember my first job I was working at a hosting company, and I started on the 2nd of the month. By the 4th of the month, they got sold. Thought I was out of a job. Thankfully, I wasn't. And actually got a bonus check there. They didn't have a check for me, and the CEO was like, "Well, you just started, so CFO, come over here and write you a check." And she wrote me a check on the spot, which was great, being a young professional just joining the company. And after that, after the hype of being sold and having a bunch of new money now, the service went down. For a company that prided themselves on having low support tickets, we went from an average of 20 to 25 tickets in 6 months to having 160 support tickets in our queues. And the support manager saw this. And what he did was put up a monitor in the NOC, put the number of tickets there and an MRTG graph. That's how old this was. And told everyone, come in on the Saturday, he'll provide lunch, and we're going to work to blow out that ticket queue. And everyone came in on that Saturday. We all had pizza and beer. This was a small company in the early 2000s, so this was the time that we could drink beer and not have issues, I guess. And we went from 160 to 30 support tickets in about 2 hours, with everyone just working. The CEO walks in and sees that and thought it was an error. He looks at the monitor and says, "Well, how do we only have 30 tickets? What happened?" And when they told him what happened, he recognized the work we were doing there, the goal that we were achieving, and wrote everyone a check that weekend as a bonus to recognize that effort, which was great. We didn't have that shared goal before because those numbers were hidden somewhere. And it actually came in perfect. That bonus came in perfectly because it was February and it was just in time for Valentine's Day, so everyone was happy there. So that's a great benefit of being able to observe, monitor these things, and measure them, is that you can execute against you can set a goal and execute against that shared goal and celebrate when you reach that goal. Another benefit is around performance guidelines and application governance. I worked with a client once where they had really great numbers on availability and really great numbers on just about everything. And after a while, their availability started going down. The technical debt started going up. And it got to the point where they started falling out of what the business set as the SLA for the availability and downtime. And I guess I got to move around a little bit. So when that happened, the business actually noticed this and came to the IT and said, "Hey, what's going on here? What do we need to do in order to get the availability up? I see we have a bunch of technical debt, about 5 days worth. Can we spend a sprint working on fixing that stuff? Would that fix the availability issues?" And IT said yes, absolutely. And the business signed off on that. And just by being able to see all of this stuff, the business had no problems, no questions signing off on it, because they saw what the gains would be and what the problem was. And that leads to that last bullet point there: alignment between business and IT's perspective. I'm sure we've all had that time where we needed to go pitch the business on spending some time or spending some money on just housekeeping. And they're a bit reluctant. By having the business look at some of these shared metrics, and setting these goals, that conversation becomes way easier. So again, the tone for this talk is you can't improve what you can't measure. If you're not measuring stuff, then you can't get these benefits. It's going to be very difficult for you. So let's talk about how New Relic helps drive that. I mentioned that New Relic is kind of the de facto standard for observability right now in the industry. There's some competitors in out there that try to be New Relic or try to compete with them, and they're great products. Don't get me wrong, but with the New Relic One platform, it just takes that bar and raises it that much higher. Having the ability to capture all the New Relic data that it was capturing before was great. Their APM performance really provided a lot of information of how my application was performing, along with the synthetics information and the other products around the infrastructure area. I can see a top-down from the customer all the way. I can see a top-down performance from the customer all the way down to the infrastructure. But what I was missing is some of the contextual information. How many support tickets am I getting for this application? Yeah, it shows me that the application is performing well, but if I'm getting a ton of support tickets around that application, maybe there's something I need to look at around that application. Now, with New Relic One, I can send that data into New Relic and have a dashboard that shows the application performance right next to that information. I can see from start to beginning what development activities are going on and how that possibly is affecting my application, not only from a performance level, but maybe availability level or cost level or security level. And I can make more informed decisions based off of that. This wasn't really capable. New Relic wasn't really capable of doing this before until New Relic came around. New Relic One came around, and it just makes things super easy. So now that New Relic One is here, I can now build a dashboard to be able to understand the performance, not only of my application, but my development and my customer. And in this screenshot here, you will see a couple of things. Let me switch over to my to my browser here. Right now, you can see my application health here. You can see how things are performing. But since this is a DevSecOps related dashboard, I can now see some development related activities going on. So I have 4 features in progress. If I'm a business user or a business person, I have the business perspective, maybe I know what all 4 of those features are and I'm happy with that, but maybe maybe I don't know what this are. And I think that really I should only have 1 feature in development, and that's the most important feature I have. Now I can have that conversation and talk about that. And we can add even more information here to be able to showcase the features that are being developed. I can see how many commits are happening per day. As a business person, I might not care, but as a developer, I might care. Like, oh, there's 7 commits. That sounds about average for a day. What happens if there's 30 commits, 40 commits? Man, I maybe need to step up my game here, or I may need to look into this as a development manager. Why is there so many commits coming in? And internal code compliance. You know, some clients have asked for the ability to make sure the code that's being checked in is tested against their internal checks. They want to make sure, for example, that they have code has the right formatting, tabs and not spaces, properly documented code. In this case, this code is 100% compliant. On the right side, you can see build time and what the average build time is for this application. Now, 42 seconds doesn't seem like a lot, but for this organization, they're looking for lower build time. So now having this there prominently, and it's showing in yellow because that we've set a critical warning for, or we set the warning to be 40 seconds for this. Now shows like, hey, the build times are getting higher. Someone should probably look into why this is happening. There's opportunity to reduce the build time. And why would I even care about reducing the build time? 42 seconds isn't that long. I can go get my coffee, come back, and it should be done. Well, if I can get that down to 10 seconds or 15 seconds or 20 seconds by, let's say, breaking this out into services, different services, then I could deploy faster. I think 42 seconds is good enough, but this this organization didn't think so. Code coverage. Now, I always, at the higher the code coverage percentage, the greater, the better it is, because now you can theoretically reduce the amount of bugs that's going out into production. If you're writing the test, that is, if you're writing a proper test. 85% for this organization is their warning, where the team can see this, it's in red, and now they can turn around and look to dedicate some time to fix this, or have the discussion to say, okay, we're going to fix this in our next sprint. And then the amount of bills, how many bills are going out today. It's an interesting number to show. Sometimes it's indicative of how much work is being done, or if there's any stress or urgency about getting features out there. But it's one of those things, just like repo commits, that you kind of take it with a grain of salt. Maybe I have one build that went out on a Saturday, and it's the best build in the world, and I deployed it, and it's ready to go. And then in this middle area, you have deployments. Now, this is deployed by timestamp, has the success or failure status of the deployment, and talks about the build ID, which I could, it's not set up here, but I could, I would be able to click on this, and it can take me to that build ID, so I can look at what the build logs are. Here I could copy and paste it and go to the build server and look at it, search for it. And the deploy time, as you can see, deploy time is about a minute and a half average, I guess, looking at these rough numbers, which might be good, which might be bad. I don't know. It depends on this organization. And then the deployment ID, in this case, it's all linked, so it's the same information. A little bit further down, we get into some interesting metrics. So I'll talk about secure code quality. In the last scan of this code, of the code for this application, it's found 3 critical issues. Now, these might be false positives and might need some tuning, but the fact that it found 3 critical issues, and I can see this, the entire team can see this, means that you have multiple eyes on it, and if someone isn't addressing it now, they should be addressing it in the next stand-up. And hopefully it's not a real issue, but if it is, it should be fixed. And I'll give an example of Experian, their hack that happened a couple of years ago now. They actually were doing code quality checks, but the development team did not get the notifications about that. The security team got the notifications about that. And the security team forwarded an email saying, hey, we probably need to look into this. There's a critical vulnerability in one of the libraries that we're using. But the development team never looked at it for whatever reason, and then they were hacked in one of the biggest hacks in the world. Providing this information where security team can see it, development team can see it, the business team can see it, helps eliminate those type of issues. You can't fully eliminate it because someone can see that and ignore it, but hopefully they're not. And then test code quality. In this particular case, this scan has found no major critical or blocker issues, but it did find 242 minor issues that should be addressed. So this is a single dashboard that provides a lot of visibility for a team to be able to work off, and we can set KPIs around this. Hey, team, let's get our build time down to 30 seconds. Let's brainstorm around that. Let's get our code coverage up to 95% in the next 3 months. Let's make sure we trend to never have more than one critical issue per build going into any of our main branches. And same thing with test quality. So by being able to aggregate all your software development, software deployment, software operations into a single dashboard, you can provide that visibility and improve the maturity of your teams. And again, by being able to do that, you can help drive accountability. Now, I'm sitting in that team and I see those issues. Even if someone else has implemented it, I'm still responsible on that team. Let me go take a look to see what I can do to fix some of these things so that we don't have an issue. Now, I'll take a second here to sip some water, but I want to talk a little bit about some of the gotchas to transitioning to this model. And as I do this, please, if there's any questions that people want to ask, go ahead and start adding them into the chat. And then that way, once we get to that section, we'll be able to go over them pretty quickly. So one gotcha is DevOps is about delivering value to stakeholders and customers. Don't ever forget this. I keep on harping this over and over again for a reason. I've seen implementation initiatives where someone has been using a DevOps initiative to keep control over things. An operational team wants to control the access into an environment. And that's not what DevOps is about. It's about delivering value. And in some cases, delivering value might mean keeping control as far as it goes with governance. But it can also mean expanding control, but keeping that governance in there. And at the end of the day, if what you're doing to mature your DevOps capability isn't delivering value, then you need to be reevaluating your initiative. I reiterate it again, DevOps is a culture. It's not a team, tool, or process. If you think you're going to implement or mature your DevOps organization just by implementing a tool such as Terraform or Jenkins, then you're sorely mistaken. You're just going to have a lot of people toiling on implementing this stuff, and you're not going to get any value out of it. If you're centralizing your entire DevOps organization into a single team, you're not going to have get the benefits of the transformative effects of moving to a DevOps culture. And the same thing with a process. If you're just implementing agile processes, or you're just reducing gates to be able to deploy stuff as quickly or whenever someone wants, yeah, you're going to run into a lot of pain and a lot of burnt out engineers that are up in the middle of the night because stuff is failing on a deployment. But also, you're not delivering value. Like we talked about, DevOps equals DevSecOps. Care less what you call it. Security is embedded in every process, skill, and technology used in the DevOps operating model. So if it's better in your organization to call it DevSecOps, then call it that. If you get that and your organization gets that and you're fine and you want to call it DevOps, that's fine. But make sure that you're thinking about security in every step of the way. When you start going down this path, you want to set up a center of excellence, a COE. But what you don't want to do is make it a bottleneck. Just like you don't want to have a DevOps team, you don't want to have a COE that needs to approve or acts as a gate in order for teams to start doing stuff. The purpose of a COE is to provide guidance on areas that the organization might need and provide feedback to the organization, to any team members that would like it. And it's also to showcase some of the success that's been happening. We'll talk about how to bring some of those wins that are happening. But the idea is, if I'm a developer and I have I've implemented something and I'm able to deploy out fast and it's fully tested and I have no issues because I'm doing functional testing before I deploy it. That's something to showcase that maybe other teams can copy or other teams can innovate over and make it better. And that's what you want a center of excellence to do, is to act as that organization that allows for that to happen. You don't want someone to have to come to a COE to get approval before they can deploy stuff. Now, one of the biggest failures I've seen is when moving to or looking to mature DevOps organization, is that the initiative starts very large and they take 10 teams and send those 10 teams on their merry way to implement the processes, tooling, and technology that they need. And because of that, you have 10 teams with 4 or 5 people each that are driving in 10 different ways. Sometimes there multiple people on the same team are driving in different ways, and it leads to chaos. So what I recommend is starting small. Have one team focus on meeting a goal that they've set, and as they start progressing to that goal, you're measuring that, you're measuring their improvement, and you're taking those wins, they're taking their learning and bringing it to the COE and celebrating those wins. And the rest of the team that could take advantage of those wins can now go off and start doing some of that stuff. After that small team starts gets to the maturity level where they can start going on their own, then you move to the next team. And you'll be surprised, they're probably a little bit further on than when you originally started, because that first team has taught them a lot and has gotten them excited where they're doing a lot of stuff on their own. By the time you get to that 10th team or that last team, there probably isn't much you need to do at that point, because they're already learned from all the other teams and they're flying. And now you have a very mature DevOps organization that can constantly innovate and iterate on their implementations and improve on what they're doing to deliver value to the stakeholders and customers. Now, responsibility and accountability doesn't equal blame. You saw that dashboard and it showed that it had 3 security issues. But the one thing you want to avoid is the discussion of who implemented those security issues. Let's blame them. Let's find who that is, and let's go and put their head on a stake. What you want to do is realize that the entire team is responsible and accountable to this. And if they see that there is some security issues, the entire team is empowered to go there and fix them, or go there and find them. And if you can't fix it, highlight them and bring that to the team of, hey, look, I've looked these over. 2 of these, we could probably write some exceptions to them because they're not real issues. But this one, I have no idea how to fix. But we don't want to be blaming people. Dave Shanker, he wrote bad code, and I can see it now, and it's on the dashboard, and now the business and IT sees it, and everyone sees it, and now Dave is bad. Definitely don't blame Dave for anything, any Daves out there in the world. Now, this one is a very interesting one. The dashboard that I set up didn't have any business metrics on it yet. But in a lot of places, it's very important to have right business metrics alongside the technical metrics on that same dashboard. Imagine having the amount of revenue generated per day here next to application health, revenue health. Now, if I have any application issues, I should be able to see the effects I have on the revenue as well. And that accountability, that understanding of knowing, hey, I just cost the company $2,000 this hour because I had a deployment that failed, will hopefully have drive the entire team to one, do more to prevent that from happening, but also two, engineer solutions so that even if I did deploy something, it won't have such a large effect on revenue. I'm using revenue as an example here, but maybe it's not revenue. Maybe it's on customer, live customers. Maybe it's on the amount of microtransactions that's happening. I say it's a tricky one just because sometimes the business is reluctant to want to disclose that information, especially widely. But there's a lot of benefits to doing that. So agreeing on the right metrics is important here. The right business metrics is important. Oh. And into that is you want to put some thought into what is the right metrics to be displaying. What should I be showing on here? And it does take some thought, not only from the technical side, but on the business side, like we talked about. So with that, I'll turn it over to any questions and answers. Let me take a look in the chat here, see if there's any. All right. So if I'm looking in the correct area, I don't see any questions yet. I'll give everyone a couple seconds just in case they're adding it now. Henry, you're very welcome. I hope you guys learned something. Tori, you're welcome as well. Thank you for your time. All right, well, if there are any questions, feel free to send them. My contact information is here. You can reach out on the website through the Contact Us form. You can also hit me up on Twitter with a direct message or tweet me a regular message. Just tweet at me on Twitter. I appreciate the time there. I hope everyone learned something, and I hope everyone stays safe. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.